Welcome everyone to our Lake Stewardship Workshop as we continue our series of lake protection success stories. I'm Jim Irwin, Chair of the Riding Mountain Biosphere Reserve. I'll be hosting tonight's workshop, and Dennis Hodgson and Daryl Kynes will be assisting. To begin, I would like to acknowledge that the Riding Mountain Biosphere Reserve is in Treaty 2 and 4 territories of the Anishinaabe people, and say that we respect and share their all-important teachings that water is a sacred gift essential for all life. Riding Mountain Biosphere Reserve has been in existence since 1986, bringing people together to share their knowledge for the well-being of our communities. In this respect, we're pleased to have Camille Leblanc and Georgia Peck share their work with Living Lakes Canada organization in this session of our workshop. Camille Leblanc is a program assistant with the Living Lakes Canada organization. Camille is also the program manager of Friends of Kootenay Lake Stewardship Society, and she is leading projects on shoreline restoration, wildlife monitoring, and water quality monitoring. Camille's presentation is entitled Living Lakes Canada, Freshwater Stewardship, and the National Lake BLITZ. Camille?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that great introduction, Jim. Let me go ahead and share my slides. My name is Camille Leblanc, and I'm presenting to you today on the unceded territory of the Sinaiaks, Silks, Ktunaxa, and Secwepemc peoples. It's my pleasure to present to you today on what Living Lakes Canada is all about and our latest and new exciting freshwater stewardship initiative, which we're calling the National Lake BLITZ. But you'll hear me refer to it as the Lake BLITZ. Big thanks to Jim, Dennis, and Daryl for coordinating this presentation, and to all the members of the Healthy Prairie Lakes Network for having us here today. So here's just a quick overview of what I'm going to be discussing tonight. I'm going to start my timer so I don't go over time. So I'll start by just giving a quick introduction about Living Lakes Canada, tell you more about what the Lake BLITZ is all about, including going through why we're doing the project, what our goals and objectives are, and who our project partners are, and what our timeline is. You'll also have a chance to find out how you can get involved and hear more about our vision and where we see the Lake BLITZ going in subsequent years, as well. Lots of time for questions too, as I'm sure you'll have some. So who is Living Lakes Canada, or LLC? So LLC is a nonprofit organization that's been playing a leadership role in water stewardship and community-based water monitoring for over 20 years. LLC is one of the few NGOs in Canada qualified by the federal government to train Indigenous and non-Indigenous community groups to monitor the health of their waterways using federal water monitoring protocols. The water monitoring programs that LLC runs allow for a wide range of citizen scientists and environmental professionals to be equipped to track important information regarding watershed health and increasing opportunities to build and apply climate resiliency at a community level. So our mission is to bridge the gap between science and action to foster citizen-based water stewardship. And we do this through science-driven community-based water monitoring, assessment and restoration programs also, that both aim to normalize water stewardship and empower Canadians to protect their threatened freshwater resources. So just broadly, a few of our projects and programs are focused on stream and river monitoring, also groundwater monitoring, creating a water data hub for stewardship groups in the Columbia Basin, and also doing high elevation water monitoring using climate stations in the upper Kootenay Lake watershed. So I feel like presenting on all of these programs would be many hours. So I invite you to learn more about these particular projects on our amazing new website. It's gotten quite the facelift, so it's really interactive and great. And if you have any questions at the end, I can always address some of the questions on these programs too. So the focus of the rest of my presentation will be on a new pilot program LLC is running this year, which is called the National Lake BLITZ, or Lake BLITZ for short. So Georgia and I are co-coordinators of this event, and we've been really busy building relationships and talking to water stewardship groups from all over Canada to find out how the BLITZ can happen in different provinces and territories. Really broadly, the Lake BLITZ was born out of the idea that water stewardship should be democratized and normalized by removing barriers and equipping citizen scientists to use simple tools and techniques to gather water data. In partnership with local citizen science and water stewardship organizations across Canada, LLC will coordinate a national BLITZ over the summer of 2021 to celebrate our freshwater lakes and help Canadians understand the importance of water stewardship action. So the National Lake BLITZ is a 3-year program, and we're in our pilot year. LLC and other partner organizations will provide simple and engaging community-based water monitoring and citizen science opportunities for our BLITZ participants from all over Canada. Detailed information, instructions, and equipment will be provided to all participants as they join. So in a little bit more detail, this program plans to involve 2 tiers of participation and also includes a large social media campaign. So there's going to be a national photo BLITZ that will encourage wider participation amongst our followers on social media and participants, and also on the social media of our participant organizations. So anyone interested in taking part has to send in a photo of their favorite lake throughout the summer, capturing the surrounding biodiversity or impacts that you see along shorelines, and send it to our team before the end of Lakes Appreciation Month in July. We, along with one of our partners, will be categorizing the photos into the most biodiverse, impactful, and choosing the winner. Prizes from Lush Canada and Kicking Horse Coffee and others on this growing list of donors will be given out to the winners. And there will also be a public favorite vote where our participants and social media followers will select their favorite lake photo. So we'll be creating a hashtag. The Lake Photo BLITZ is one of the ones we were thinking of. And this will be used by all those who post on social media so we can track activity throughout the summer. In this tier 1, we'll also be developing these Lake BLITZ hubs. So this will involve growing a national network of stewardship groups that will act as our lake hubs and will help us coordinate their volunteers to gather data on lakes, which include taking lake temperature and lake photos and documenting any sightings of invasive species. So we're hoping that volunteers will be able to go to a local lake at least once, but hopefully 4 times per month, depending on their capacity. Lake locations will be provided for volunteers with the help of our Lake BLITZ hubs, and 1 lake will be monitored per participant, so we can get as much monitoring done as possible. The Lake BLITZ team will provide these mini water testing kits through Water Rangers, which is a nonprofit based in Ottawa. Our volunteers will use the Water Rangers mobile apps to gather and store the data. So each volunteer will create their own account through the app and will connect to our Lake BLITZ project, where the specific data forms will be found. And they'll be asked to gather data on water temperature and take monthly lake shoreline and then water photos as well. So taking a photo of the water color. As well, those with their plant ID skills or those who want to learn them will be making note of any aquatic or riparian invasive species that they see on the shoreline. So each kit will have everything you need. It will have a thermometer, a field guidebook that includes invasive plant identification resources, as well as a magnet to go on your fridge, reminding you to monitor on the same day each month or week. Along with the kits, LLC will also provide some funding to each organization and assist with the coordination to assist with the coordination of the program. And we will also do some volunteer outreach. We want our Lake BLITZ hubs to feel supported and have as few barriers to participation as possible. Our tier 2 is actually BC focused for our pilot year. So in year 1, tier 2 will be a participation with primarily the BC Lake Stewardship Society, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on citizen science and is a branch of the provincial government. So we will work with their team members and volunteers to help them achieve their citizen science and communication goals to areas where they really do need support. We're hoping to expand this tier 2 model to other stewardship groups in Canada in years 2 and 3. So we'll be working with our Lake BLITZ hubs to identify potential collaboration there. Why are we doing the Lake BLITZ and why now? So by developing a national picture of lake temperature and impacts, we'll be better able to understand the current state of freshwater in Canada, which, as we all know, is a resource that is becoming increasingly vulnerable to climate change impacts. We know that in many parts in Canada, warming air temperatures are increasing water temperatures. And this is happening faster in northern areas than in southern climates due to climate change. We also know that increasing threats such as lake eutrophication and invasive species encroachment due to human activity will be exacerbated by climate change impacts. So there's a lack of consistent long-term monitoring, and we believe that this can be attended to by community-based water monitoring as a solution. So community-based water monitoring is providing invaluable support to the monitoring of Canada's freshwater resources. The diminished capacity of governments to monitor the health of watersheds and the absence of freshwater data in many regions across Canada has prompted communities to take a formative role in the water monitoring of their respective watersheds. This project seeks to mobilize every Canadian to take part in this movement. So in our work, we've come across so many stewardship groups doing good work to address similar challenges in their watersheds. We believe that we are stronger together, and by connecting and sharing knowledge to address freshwater concerns, we can support each other and find collaborative solutions. But we all need to be provided an opportunity to connect on a national level. And I really think that now is the time to coordinate, given the unique challenges we are facing in regards to climate change and its national and global impacts. This project really has 3 main goals that will be pursued across the life of this 3-year project. So our first goal, create a high-profile public campaign that shows the importance and validity of community-based water monitoring to answer scientific questions about climate change impacts to freshwater lakes in Canada. So the Lake BLITZ will be a highly promoted event in LLC's social media channels and those of our partner organizations. And this goal will be achieved through creating engaging social media content that will be, brought on through our channels and in our participant groups as well. And we'll be posting very frequently to keep the event in people's minds at the forefront. Posts will be shared through mainly, sharing photos of those who are taking part, because I really do think that photos are proven to be the most effective means for spreading a message and creating intrigue. We can see ourselves in others, and that compels us to act. By building public awareness and a high quality data set, the Lake BLITZ will become an example of how to bring all hands on deck and address our concerns for freshwater under a changing climate and build a framework for national citizen science monitoring for a longer term data collection process. So we're trying to make it really simple for people to take part so that we can allow this to continue past the life of the project. Goal 2. We really want to highlight the work of stewardship groups and provide accessible opportunities for their Indigenous and non-Indigenous volunteers to monitor their freshwater lakes. So stewardship groups around Canada have big issues to address and little capacity or resources to do so. As Jim said in my intro, I manage a small nonprofit, so this is very true for us. Therefore, a goal of the Lake BLITZ is to provide a platform and to promote those doing good work in their respective communities through social media means. Thanks and recognition, like I said, will be given to our volunteers who have signed up to monitor a specific lake in their watershed, and their efforts will be highlighted online repeatedly as well. And this is also true for our tier 2 with the BC Lake Stewardship Society, who really has not a whole lot of capacity. They've got a big job. They don't have a lot of capacity to let people know the good work they're doing. So we're hoping to help out there too. So creating a network of water stewardship organizations, goal number 3. These organizations will be from across Canada. And the objective in this goal is to create a nationwide contact list for Canadian water organizations and stewardship groups. And this list will be used to connect groups through a water-centric newsletter. So as I stated before, creating a more connected network of like-minded stewardship groups working to protect our fresh water is one of the main priorities of this event. One of our objectives, like I said, is to have this newsletter developed and distributed to all Lake BLITZ hubs and partners. The newsletter will be a go-to resource for information on federal policy affecting our waterways, what equipment to use for monitoring, and anything else a water stewardship entity should know about. Okay, and these are a few of our partners. I've listed the ones that we are in, the most direct collaboration with. So I mentioned before the Water Rangers team. So they build technology and field tools for citizen science water testing, and they're going to be providing their Water Ranger data collection app for the Lake BLITZ hubs and volunteers to use on both iOS and Android devices. This app will allow volunteers to upload their temperature data as well as their photo data collected in the field in real time. Photographs of the lake water, associated land use, and any vegetation will be captured to get a literal picture of the current state of Canada's lakes at the time of data collection. The Earth Rangers will be partnering with our team in helping us choose the winner of the most diverse photo challenge. They will also be instrumental in getting kids and families out monitoring their lake ecosystems, as they have quite an impressive reach in Eastern Canada. BC Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy will be involved in the Tier 2 of the Lake BLITZ, which is, like I said, focused solely in BC for now. Their water stewardship branch, BCLSS, does a lot of amazing work and has limited resources and capacity. So we will be addressing this in Tier 2. Just a couple of our advisors, Waterlution and Aqua Hackers. And here is our current and growing list of Lake BLITZ hubs. And then, not including Living Lakes ourselves as one of the hubs. And we're really looking for more prairie provinces to join the team. Wonderful. Okay, so here is our timeline. So this is a bit of an outline of our current time frame. So in May, so this month we're in right now, Georgia and I are really busy following up with organizations and stewardship groups who have expressed interest in taking part in the BLITZ. The partnership document during this time will be sent to our Lake BLITZ hubs, and a survey, which will be more of like a value survey and an equipment needs survey, will be sent to gather information on each organization. And like I said, find out how much equipment they will need. Groups will be invited to share promotions for the Lake BLITZ photo challenge at this time, which will be our kickoff event that is open to the public. In June, we are going to be mailing quite a few bits of mail, making sure all of our Lake BLITZ kits will be out to our partner groups in time for monitoring. These kits will be manufactured through Water Rangers and will contain one Living Lakes branded thermometer, a monitoring day reminder magnet, and instructions on how to gather data and to use the Water Rangers mobile data collection app. A training webinar will be provided by the Lake BLITZ staff to participating groups, and this will include some helpful tips on how to gather temperature data and what to look for when on the shoreline. Volunteers will then begin monitoring their lake of choice, like I said, either 1 to 4 times per month until September, using the kits. And these locations will be assisted, if need be, by the Lake BLITZ team and the Lake BLITZ hubs. In July, the photo challenge will start to come to it will kind of reach its peak, as that is Lakes Appreciation Month. So people will still be able to send in their photos, and will really, be encouraging participation and be highlighting selected lakes and the associated stewardship groups. So using these lake photos to maybe tell a little bit more about the particular lake that the photo is of. Winners will be chosen by the Earth Rangers president and Living Lakes Canada. Living Lakes will, like I said, be promoting our hubs and partners and volunteers during this time, and will also be promoting other partner events, such as North American Lake Management Society, or NALM's annual Sechi Disc Dip-In, if anyone's taken part in that before. It's really, really great citizen science event. September is the last month of our BLITZ. So we'll begin conducting our final outreach to participant groups and begin assessing the success of this event. Feedback surveys will be created and will be sent out to the organizations and their participating volunteers. In the winter, as we really wind down, a project summary will be created by the BLITZ team and will outline the premise of the program, visualize the data collected through maps, feature feedback from participants, and map out a vision for subsequent years. The data points collected will be plotted on a map of Canada to show our reach in year one, and this will hopefully grow and spread more each year. So really, how to get involved? It's pretty simple. So you have to ask yourself, do you have an interest in water monitoring? Are you involved with the water stewardship group in your watershed? And would you like to take part in an event like this? You can always contact our coordination team to get registered as a Lake BLITZ hub. We have our own personal email where all the correspondence can be sent at lakeblitz@livinglakescanada.ca. Like I said, we're currently looking for additional prairie hubs in Manitoba and Saskatchewan. So like I've said before, each hub will receive like a partner guidance document, that initial partnership value survey, a volunteer monitoring and data collection guide that you can review and then send to your volunteers. And this same guide will also be echoed in our field guide as well. So when people are out there, they can be reminded of what they need to do with their kits. There'll be a maximum of 10 kits for each organization for their volunteers to use, or just depending on what their capacity is and how much equipment we have available. We were just talking before we started. I didn't realize until a couple of days ago that Manitoba is home to 110,000 lakes. So I think there's plenty of opportunity to gather some data. So our vision for the BLITZ, at the end of year 3, we're hoping we have 30 plus Lake BLITZ hubs across Canada, with at least two in each province and territory. We almost made it. My husband got home from work. We're hoping to gather 500 data points on freshwater lakes across Canada, and develop sustainable citizen science programs in each of Canada's 5 named watersheds. And also create that contact list for the creation of our water stewardship group newsletter. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take some questions. And thank you so much for listening and receiving this information on the BLITZ.
Will the Lake BLITZ be active in northern communities, Camille?
Yeah, so we are hoping to reach out to some water stewardship groups that exist there. Currently, their concerns tend to be on water temperature, but there is limited capacity due to population density. But we're hoping to branch out more in year 2, but build relationships in year 1 for sure.
What are the different monitoring priorities of some of your potential partner groups?
Yeah, just off the top of my head, in our talks with Alberta Lake Management Society, they're really concerned with invasive species. So monitoring for mussels and aquatic invasives such as milfoil. Like I said, the northern communities, it's of course a concern with temperature. And in Ontario or in some of the more eastern areas, they're really concerned with invasive fish species, just off the top of my head. So it's really varied. And when we began trying to design this program through our advisory meetings, we sort of went down a bit of a rabbit hole trying to create a national structure for citizen science participation that, it has that low barrier quality, but also is scientifically valuable. So we settled on the lake photos and the lake temperature as something that can be used for 3 years, but then hopefully extended longer for that long-term data set, which is incredibly valuable.
So I know you talked a bit about the kit, but what actually is in the kit, the BLITZ kit?
Yeah. So we have our Living Lakes branded thermometers. So it's those classic water temperature thermometers that are pretty break proof. They're pretty bulletproof. We also have that magnet that reminds you when to go monitor. It's got a couple different days so you can choose what works for your schedule. And then it has that field guide. So in there, it's going to be all the information that you need to get onto the app. And then to, do some invasive species ID if you're not sure of what you're seeing. And then, yeah, more further information for connecting with us and getting involved.
So if a community were to join the organization, they would be trying to take temperature 4 times a month and sending that to you every week, or once a month, sending those 4 pieces of data in?
Yeah, so the great thing is since it's all held in the Water Rangers mobile data collection app, it's already uploaded to the project. So there's no need to fuss with data sheets or worry about getting data in on time. It's automatically uploaded, and we can see that it's all geo-referenced, so we can tell where the data was collected and what was gathered and when and by who. So that's really handy.
That really simplifies it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then if they want to participate in the photo part of it, they would need to send at least 1 photo at some point.
Yeah, exactly. With the deadline of the end of Lakes Appreciation Month, so we can start to really celebrate all the photos we're getting in. Yeah.
Where does the data go then once it is collected? And I think you talked a bit about that, but where beyond traveling electronically to you, then where does it go? How is it used?
Yeah, so the data itself, it is actually uploaded like through Water Rangers. It's uploaded to an open source platform data stream. So that's, I guess, technically where the data is stored. But over time, like the data is going to be used to get like that snapshot of the freshwater health at this current time, and then will be used and shown spatially. So we'll have that data set. We'll be able to download it from the Water Rangers app and keep that on our database. So that's essentially where it's going. And as far as temperature data is concerned, to have have a really good usable data set on temperature, like we need to have consistent temperature readings years and years. So 10 years at least is the sweet spot. So we're hoping that the data that we gather through this can be carried, or those volunteers will carry on and help us create this data set that then can be very useful. And lake photos, I guess lake photos are very useful as a way to track what our lakes look like, because with all of the changing or the changes that we're seeing, we can start to develop landscape amnesia and not really remember what it looked like before or what impacts it may have seen.
So would the objective be to try and take a picture each year from the same position and hopefully show any change, good or bad?
Yeah. Well, 100%. Year by year is great, and even we'll be able to track it month by month throughout the summer too. The Lake BLITZ photo portion of the data collection. So the temperature is a really good thing to take repeatedly. We think that you could take a lake photo once a month. If you've seen any big changes, then you can always take more, but that's a good thing to have each month too.
So you talk quite a bit about temperature, and it is in fact the only parameter that you're collecting apart from the photos. Yeah,
that is the one water quality parameter we're taking, and then we're complementing that with the photos and the invasive species identification as well.
So how would people go about the invasive species identification then? What should they be doing to accurately, reliably go through that process?
Yeah, exactly. I know as someone who's gone through the process of plant identification that it can be kind of an interesting road. We'll have a guide in the field book that will have really good, high quality photos of the most common invasive species that we're seeing across Canada. But we are getting people to take pictures of those invasive species so that, if they have any questions or we think there might have been a misidentification, then we can have some backing there too.
Will volunteers continue to monitor their lakes after the program has ended, Camille?
Yeah, that's definitely what we're hoping that through the support of our stewardship groups and by providing the equipment for their volunteers, then they can continue to do their monitoring year after year.
That'd be really beneficial, wouldn't it?
It would be. Friends of Kootenay Lake actually has a couple of local volunteers who have been monitoring a wetland site that we restored in 2014, and they're still monitoring it till today. And it's not lost on me that that's a pretty rare thing, but definitely with the BLITZ and the methods we're choosing, it's pretty barrier free, and it could be something that people buy into because it's a time to be with your lake. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it becomes, eventually it should become part of our lives then.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely the idea.
If I was interested in taking part, what kind of instructional and learning resources are available to me or my volunteers, say?
Yeah, so there is the partnership guide that is given to our partners. So that's more specific to the Lake BLITZ hubs. And then we do have a very simple step-by-step guide, so a volunteer document that can be given out to volunteers with a more in-depth than description of the rationale behind those methods, so people kind of know why they're doing what they're doing. And then there is the field guide that will be more concise that people can use on the spot, but they'll have this volunteer guide to fall back on for more information. And they can also always reach us too.
What's your guess on some of the results after a while, given climate change and the fact that water may be warming up? What conclusions do you think we may be drawn from some of that data, Camille?
Yeah, I think that with temperature data and its implications for freshwater ecosystems, the biota that live within the water, we can maybe compare that to declines in fish health, in the trophic levels of lakes as well. So it could be a good bit of baseline data and consistent data to then compare to other changes that we're seeing.
Can communities who join Living Lakes Canada, can they actually access the database on their own time and on a frequent basis to observe the changes that are occurring, not only in their lake, but in other lakes?
Yeah, that's the idea, to have the data be available for people to check in on it. Living Lakes does have a Columbia Basin-based water hub, but we're looking at ways where we could potentially use that platform as an access point for Lake BLITZ data. But that data will be communicated in our final communications at the end of the project. And it's also going to be available on DataStream too.
That's great. I want to thank everybody for the questions that you've provided. And thank you, Camille, for your thoughtful response and for your presentation. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Yeah, that was totally my pleasure. It's actually our first presentation on the Lake BLITZ that we've given since it's such a new project. So it was a joy to create it and I guess really answer some questions that I may have had while mapping it out. So this is a great opportunity, and we really hope that you guys have some interest in taking part. And if you have any more questions, you can always pass them our way, and we'll try to get you connected.
Thank you very much, Camille. It's great to learn about your lake buzz and our BLITZ, and possibly we can figure out how we can set up a hub here in Manitoba. Our next presentation tonight is by Georgia Peck. Georgia is the program coordinator for the Living Lakes Canada, and she is also the program coordinator for the Columbia Lake Stewardship Society. And she is leading projects in community outreach, wildlife monitoring, and water quality monitoring. Georgia's presentation is entitled Living Lakes Canada, Find Out About FIMP. And I'll let Georgia tell you what FIMP stands for. Georgia?
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you, Camille, for the wonderful presentation on the Lake BLITZ. It's Very exciting to see things moving forward. As Camille mentioned, I am also the co-coordinator of the Lake BLITZ, and we only just received funding confirmation last week from RBC through their Tech for Nature grant. So really, really pleased to see things moving along and to see a presentation take place and outreach take place. It's great to see. My name is Georgia Peck, and I am speaking to you today from Golden, BC. This is the traditional territory of the Shuswap, Okanagan, and Ktunaxa peoples. So I am currently the acting FIMP program manager with Living Lakes Canada. So Camille gave a great overview of Living Lakes in her presentation, but really what LLC does is works to enhance the protection, the restoration, and the rehabilitation and the health of watersheds in BC and across Canada. We build capacity through community-based water monitoring and help address climate impacts. So we promote and facilitate cross-sector collaboration and research to increase water literacy and support progressive decision-making for improved water stewardship. So I will start off by saying this program, then this presentation is rich with acronyms. We'll go through quite a bit of them, but I will be sure to introduce each of them as we move forward with the presentation. So first, a little bit about my background, which did begin in Southern Ontario, where I am from. My background is in biology and wildlife conservation. I have been living in Golden for the past 3 years, and I have been working with Living Lakes Canada as of fall 2020. So prior to that, I was acting coordinator for 2 local stewardship groups in the area, and that was the Lake Windermere Ambassadors and Columbia Lake Stewardship Society. So Lake Windermere was actually re-FIMPed, and I will describe that in the next slide, just this past summer in 2020. So before I joined Living Lakes Canada, I did get a really wonderful experience working within the FIMP project. And really got to see how the fieldwork takes place and how the results can be used and implemented from a stewardship standpoint. So that was really helpful going into the program, now working behind the scenes a little bit more. So before we get any further, diving into acronyms and making things nice and complicated, I will describe FIMP as it stands today. And so what FIMP means is Foreshore Integrated Management Planning. It was previously known as SHIM, Sensitive Habitat Inventory Mapping, and it is a methodology that was developed in partnership with Fisheries and Oceans Canada. It maps shoreline habitats, assesses habitat value, and establishes shoreline development guidelines to conserve ecosystems, support climate resiliency, protect species of conservation concern, and provide best management practices to decision makers, stakeholders, and shoreline property owners. So beginning in 2019, Living Lakes Canada entered a 4-year contribution agreement with Fisheries and Oceans Canada through their Canada Nature Fund for Aquatic Species at Risk program. So this project is currently reviewing and revising the FIMP methodology, and it is mapping or remapping 6 to 8 lakes in the Columbia Basin. And we're doing this to assess the rate of change in ecological and urban development parameters. So to give you an idea of what FIMP looks like once the fieldwork has taken place and once the final report has been produced, we'll kind of look at Lake Windermere, where I was working just last summer in Windermere, BC. So in 2011, Lake Windermere was FIMPed, and what came out of that was the East Kootenay Integrated Lake Management Plan. And this was created to assist with water surface zoning between the District of Invermere and the Regional District of East Kootenay. So based on the results from the 2011 FIMP work, these 2 districts were able to zone the surface of Lake Windermere to make sure any landscape or development changes were in accordance with the sensitivity of the surrounding habitat. So really what this did was assess landscape level changes. And then when we redid FIMP just now in 2020, it really assessed the changes over a 10-year time frame. So the data collected will now allow for updates to the water surface zoning on Lake Windermere to protect the sensitive parts of the shoreline and assist with property owner outreach and education moving forward. So now that we have a little bit of a snapshot of the FIMP program, I'll take the next 15 minutes or so to introduce you further to foreshore integrated management planning. We will discuss the history, the framework, the changes along the way, and where we stand today within the project. Before we dive any further, I will introduce you to our fearless leaders, who you can see on the screen right now, and they are Heather Leascheid and Bruce McDonald. So Heather is the operations director with Living Lakes Canada and has been involved with FIMP planning for 17 different lakes in BC and Alberta. Bruce is the retired head of the Habitat Management Program in the Columbia River Basin for fisheries and oceans. He has 37 years of experience with impact assessment of land and water developments on fish habitat. And he has led quite a few and implemented quite a few FIMP projects in BC, Alberta, and Manitoba. So right now, Bruce provides oversight and expertise for field assessments, data uploading, and supporting partnership collaboration. Now, as I said, as of 2019, Heather and Bruce were successful in securing funds from Fisheries and Oceans, and this funding has supported the FIMP program since 2019 and will continue to do so until 2023. And again, like I said, this funding has allowed for the surveying of more lakes within the Columbia Basin and has provided an update to the project methodology. Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned, there are many different acronyms, quite a few of them we've gone through already. So please feel free to refer to the table on the top right side of the screen as I go through the timeline below. So FIMP, F-I-M-P, is the overarching term that we will use from now on, now that the methodology has been updated. However, it all started as SHIM, Sensitive Habitat Inventory Mapping, and that began in 2001. Now, this methodology was developed in the Lower Mainland for the use of surveying streams. So these streams in that area provide critical habitat to important species like coho salmon, and a method was finalized to survey and inventory these streams. So this turned out to be the very foundation that FIMP has used to expand to what it is today. Now, this happened in 2005 when the Regional District of Central Okanagan took SHIM and applied it to a lake for the first time, which was Lake Okanagan. Now, this led to the transition from SHIM to FIMP, which is Foreshore Inventory and Mapping, and that eventually took place in 2009. Now, the FIM acronym came about when a consultancy based out of Kelowna called Ecoscape wrote the methodology and published it for SHIM to be done on lakes. Now, so between then and now, the project continued to be refined and developed between different researchers and different organizations, and it has been updated to the version that we use today. So as of 2020, the FIMP Mapping and Methods Review, which is the update to this methodology, is published. It is almost released to the public. We're just getting it uploaded to the Columbia Basin Water Hub, where it can be accessed by the public. And can be used to understand the FIMP program a little bit better, as well as, show people what needs to be done to have FIMP completed on a lake. Now, the history of this project is really important to understand since it has been in use for over 20 years now. Like I said, it has gone through many different researchers and organizations, and it really does continue to grow and evolve over time to make sure the work is being done in the most efficient way possible and contributing the most tangible and useful resources that we can. Okay, so the next slide here is going to describe the 3 subcomponents of the program. So it all begins with foreshore inventory and mapping. And this is the FIM methodology, which involves a comprehensive survey of the foreshore by boat using GPS and aerial photograph assessment. So the survey identifies land use such as industrial versus residential versus commercial. It identifies shore type, such as rocky shore versus sandy beach. It recognizes riparian conditions, substrate type, the number of docks, weirs, or other man-made developments, any wildlife that's present during the field work, emergent versus submergent vegetation, and the list goes on. It's a very comprehensive and detailed amount of data collection that has to be done by multiple people on the boat, all at once as well. So another critical component of FIM includes desktop review. And really what this is each individual lake, as we all know, has such a unique history and footprint. And there are so many different provincial databases that state species at risk occurrences, critical habitat layers, and we really encourage analysts to incorporate all of this data into the finalized data sets to get as wide of an understanding of each unique lake that we can. So furthermore, FIM has evolved to incorporate First Nation traditional ecological knowledge and the archaeological and cultural values, including knowledge related to species at risk, is collected and held in confidentiality by the First Nation, and then it is applied for decision making. So the updated methodology looks to include this in the data set whenever it is available. Now, all of this information at the end of the FIM component, it all gets quantified and combined and summarized into a FIM summary report. And really what this provides is just a snapshot of different variables on the lake. It is not a finalized report in itself. This is just the first part that really gives us a breakdown and an overall idea of the different variables that make up that lake. Now, the second part is foreshore habitat sensitivity index. And this is really the core analysis. We take the data from FIM and we run it through a quantitative analysis that compresses all those variables into something more digestible and easy to understand, which is a 5-point ecological ranking scale that shows you low to high habitat sensitivity. So this is really the results of the primary FIM component of the work that takes place. Now, finally, the third subcomponent of the program is the foreshore development and guidance document. And this is the final report that can be used day to day and can be referred to. It is the tangible resource that can be referenced by government, stewardship groups, property owners, anybody who wishes to learn more about the foreshore and the quality of habitat that it holds, along with the development guidelines that should accompany it. Now, about 10 years ago, bits and pieces of this process were completed on Lake Winnipeg. So the FIM component, an aquatic fisheries assessment, that was all completed. However, a final report was never actually produced by the consultancy hired by the Lake Winnipeg Foundation. So I'm not even sure what happened there. So unfortunately, there is no final guidance document. However, bits and pieces of that work can still be accessed through the data stream. Okay, great. So let's check out the 2019 accomplishment. So this was the first year of the current contract that we are in with Department of Fisheries and Oceans. So now that we have a better understanding of FIMP and how it came to be, I'd really like to discuss these achievements to really just get an idea of how far the project has come and where we plan to take it in the next few years. So as I mentioned earlier, Bruce and Heather were successful in securing funds from the Canada Nature Fund for aquatic species at risk. That was a huge win, which allowed us to be here today. A technical committee was formed to help guide the project. And this was followed by 4 days of detailed workshops in Nelson to make sure that committee was fully educated on the current status of the project. So additionally, towards the end of 2019, the lake prioritization report and the methodology update that I've mentioned a few times were both started. Now these were started in 2019 so that the fieldwork in 2020 could practice and refine these new methods before either of those reports were published. So next up, we have 2020. Which, as we know, was a very eventful year for everybody, but it at least allowed us to survey 4 different lakes, 2 of which were actually re-FIMPed after 10 years, again, to assess landscape level changes that had occurred since the first time the lake was surveyed. So Lake Windermere and Moyi Lake were both redone, and the hope there is that changes seen will encourage updates to existing water zoning and really highlight the importance of shoreline guidance when it is available. So in addition to the lake surveys, the updated methodology was field tested and refined, and the lake prioritization report was completed. The primary objective of this report is to determine which lakes in the Upper Columbia Basin will be surveyed in subsequent years of the FIMP program. The criteria used to develop this report consisted of 8 criterions, including geographic location, stakeholder interest, lake development pressure, and of course the presence of species at risk, among a few others. So the report really provides a candidate lake list, which was carefully curated by our technical committee. So this detailed assessment focused primarily on existing fish and wildlife information and professional judgment, lake development pressure, and again, the presence of species at risk. So those criterions are really what put together the candidate lake list so that these high priority lakes could be prioritized before any others due to people moving out there, development pressures, species disappearing, you name it. With completed surveys, updated methodology, and a soon to be published foreshore guidance document for each of the 4 lakes, where we stand today is outreach and education. It did begin towards the end of 2020, and of course, thanks to everybody in attendance today, is ongoing into 2021. So finally, what our plans here are, as of where we stand today, is to make these reports accessible and easy to find now and into the future. That is really of the utmost importance of the FIMP team. Historical and recent FIMP data is currently being uploaded to the Columbia Basin Water Hub, where it can be accessed and referenced by anybody who wishes to find it. Where do we stand today? It is reporting season for me, so I'm extremely busy with wrapping up the second year of deliverables and reporting back to funders and stakeholders about the current status of the project. 2 to 4 more lakes will be surveyed this summer, and using the lake prioritization report, we are narrowing down which lakes will benefit most from mapping or potentially remapping again. And finally, implementation. So over the next 2 years, the FIMP team will work with local and regional government partners to incorporate the shoreline development guidelines into planning initiatives such as development permit areas and OCP policies and objectives, water surface zoning regulations, as mentioned before. Overall, really improving the ability of the guidelines to protect the ecological, cultural, and archaeological sensitivity of shoreline environments, with a special focus on conservation zones for habitats of species at risk. So beyond this, LLC does have a desire to expand into other provinces. And now that we have revised methodology, the hope is to take that knowledge and have Living Lakes promote it, guide it, and potentially deliver it in other provinces in conjunction with the stewardship groups on those lakes. With foreshore development expanding quickly all around the country, we're hearing more and more people leaving dense population cities and moving into more rural and natural environments, which is wonderful. But it is critical that we get a grasp of Canadian habitat quality and really continue to provide such great tangible resources to be used now and into the future as our rural environments become more populated with people. So I want to thank you all so much for coming out and listening today, for inviting Camille and I to discuss our projects further with you. And I'd love to open the floor to questions.
How many lakes are actually on the candidate list, Georgia?
17 different lakes have been highlighted in the Upper Columbia Basin. And I can send those out after this, the candidate list, so that everybody can take a look.
And then what really makes a lake a prime candidate for this integrated management planning?
Yeah, absolutely. So really the development pressure on a lake is the highest cause for concern at the moment. Species of risk being present, And collaboration, where we have it, First Nations collaboration, stewardship groups, that is really necessary for the FIMP project to be done in the best capacity.
Is it too early to tell, or have you already got evidence of lake communities acting on the data they're learning here? And like what kinds of, if so, what kinds of activities really seem to be popular or most beneficial to remedial or repair type?
Yeah, really what the FIMP guidance documents, where I've seen them most beneficial is in situations like the group that I worked with, the Lake Windermere ambassadors. We're given referral comments quite often throughout the year when you have development applications for a new property or a new marina. And, the data from the FIMP program really provides the scientific proof that marina should not be put there due to the habitat sensitivity of the area, or due to the fact that a species at risk has been seen there previously. So it really gives us the scientific ground to make those comments and back them up to either allow or not allow for developments to be approved. Something that we've seen as well is that the local or the regional government might think it's a good idea, but then the provincial government can actually look at the FIMP data and decide against it based on the habitat sensitivity, which is something that we recently saw, which was a great outcome.
Yeah. How many lakes has the integrated management planning work been completed on?
In BC, there's been between 15 and 20. I believe there's been 3 or 4 others in Alberta, and then Lake Winnipeg was somewhat completed. Apart from that final report, unfortunately.
Yeah. How could prairie lakes, like apparently there's not a lot of that kind of work going on the prairie lakes, and how could they become involved in that, and how might that be funded?
Absolutely. So really connecting with Living Lakes Canada is step 1. So that's already been done, which is fantastic. And really a specialized group needs to be formed to help guide this work. So really the province has to be approached to have that support. Living Lakes Canada, like I said, fisheries and oceans is a huge player in FIMP and a lot of the projects. So making sure that interest is there. Having that volunteer base, having the First Nations engagement to allow for that desktop review is super important. But really with this new methodology, the idea is that into the future, we can start training and certifying more people to have this work, be completed without the 5 people who can do it right now traveling to different lakes every summer. So really getting more and more people trained on the methods is step 1 to expanding this around the country.
Do the provinces that are participating now actually provide some funding?
Right now, the funding for our current projects have been provided through DFO, the Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program, and the Real Estate Foundation in BC is quite supportive as well. So those are the 3 that are supporting us at the moment.
Another question is, who collects the shoreline data? Is it volunteer groups mainly, or do professionals or some combination of that volunteer and professionals become involved? And what is actually collected?
Yeah, so the data that is collected, like I said, is very detailed and comprehensive. So a boat really goes around the perimeter of the lake. One person is counting man-made developments. One person is looking out for vegetation. One person is assessing the condition of the riparian habitat. And it is a mix between hired consultants, First Nations individuals in the area based on the stewardship groups that they work with, as well as technicians with Living Lakes Canada. So Bruce, who I mentioned previously, he has been present for all field work to really provide that guidance. And then we typically have a GIS specialist as well, who's mapping on the boat while the physical data collection is taking place.
So how many people are trained now in this work, Georgia?
About 5.
Wow.
Yeah, only
Well,
5 people have been involved with the complete, like, start to finish programs
for all of Canada?
for BC,
Oh, for BC.
where the FIMP work is taking place currently.
Yeah. Are there, then you noted some activity in other provinces like Eastern Canada. Are there people there as well then obviously trained?
No FIMP work has been done outside of BC and Alberta and some of Manitoba.
Okay. Why is the current focus on the BC or the Columbia Basin, Georgia?
So I think this is just where it was created. Bruce McDonald, he is really the creator of FIMP. He really took it to what it is today, and brought it to the Columbia Basin where he has worked for the past 37 years. So I just believe it's just based on where Bruce is and where he knows best, where the priority lays.
And what does FIMP fieldwork really look like? How long does it take to collect all the required data?
Depending on the size of the lake, anywhere from a few days to 2 weeks. And that's when they're on a boat. There is months of desktop review, which involves, going through those provincial databases and finding any and every report that has to do with that lake and making sure that's all analyzed as the report's being put together. So from start to finish, I would say it's about a 1-year project per lake.
Well, and how long does it take you to do a mile of shoreline?
Probably 15-20 minutes, depending on what we have there. So again, it depends. With Lake Windermere specifically, the east side of the lake has all the development, whereas the west side of the lake is taken up by the CP rail. So you have a lot more consistent shoreline on one side versus tons of development and different things to look at on the other side. So it can get a little complicated.
Yeah, that's really good. Very interesting. And our commendations to you for that work. I'm sure it will pay some dividends down the way. And thank you to those who provided questions as well, and to your thoughtful responses here, Georgia. That was awesome.
Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, Georgia. Thank you for your awesome presentation. It's very interesting. Good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us once again. All the best to you and your families, and please keep safe.